The top stories tonight in Y News. President Rodrigo Duterte declares a nationwide state of calamity due to the African swine fever outbreak.
The Department of Health confirms the Philippines' first two cases of the B.1617 COVID-19 variant first detected in India.
The Philippine economy declines anew in the first quarter of 2021. Several senators weigh in on President Duterte's pure campaign joke.
At least 40 bodies of suspected COVID-19 victims washed up on an Indian river.
And a man was left dangling 330 feet in the air after a glass bridge shatters in China. Good evening, Philippines and the world. Today is Tuesday, May 11, 2021. I am Marilyn Delgado.
Join us in the next hour as we deliver today's top stories around the country and in other parts of the world. I'm Angelo Castro III.
We are also seen in 1,935 satellite monitoring centers nationwide and via live streaming worldwide through the UNTV News and Rescue social media accounts and our website, untvweb.com. I am William Theo.
First in the news. The Philippines is now under a state of calamity for a period of 1 year due to the impacts of the African swine fever outbreak. Meanwhile, President Rodrigo Duterte has approved the higher import quota for pork products. Rosa Licons will tell us why.
For the national and local government to utilize appropriate funds, including the Quick Response Fund, and contain the continuing spread of the African swine fever, or ASF, President Rodrigo Duterte has placed the entire Philippines under a state of calamity. This is through Proclamation number 1143 and will be effective for 1 year unless earlier lifted or extended.
Ang Pilipinas ay nasa ilalim ng state of calamity dahil sa South African swine fever outbreak.
Also, government agencies and LGUs are directed to assist, cooperate, and mobilize necessary resources to curtail the further spread of ASF. While all law enforcement agencies together with the armed forces shall ensure peace and security in the ASF-affected areas. Based on the report, the hog population in the country has been reduced to around 3 million hogs in 12 regions in the country, which resulted in more than 100 billion in losses to the local hog sector and allied industries, as well as increased retail prices of pork products. Meanwhile, through Executive Order number 133, the President has approved the increase of the minimum access volume, or MAV, for pork products in 2021. MAV refers to the volume of a specific agricultural product allowed to be imported with a lower tariff. From the current 54,210 metric tons, President Duterte has approved raising the MAV to 254,210 metric tons this year to augment pork supply and stabilize prices.
Yan po ay bahagi po ng kompromiso sa panig ng Ekotibo at ng Senado, pagdating po dito sa usaping MAV.
This is to address the current supply gap in pork meat and to provide consumers with adequate and affordable food. Rosa Licos, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
The Department of Agriculture will hold a food security summit next week to discuss ways to address the current issues hounding the food supply in the country. However, various groups from the agriculture sector are planning to boycott the event and stage another food holiday. Ray Palayo will tell us why.
The United Broilers Raisers Association, or UBRA, voiced anger for being neglected by the government. That is why UBRA, along with other agricultural groups, are planning to boycott the Food Security Summit of the Agriculture Department set on May 18 and 19. According to UBRA President Bong Insyong, some of the policies implemented by the government that they rejected includes the importation of rice, chicken, and pork, and the lowering of tariff.
Bagkos ipipilit yung ideology ng import liberalization, bakit kami pupunta?
The Samahan ng Industriyang Agrikultura noted that their recommendation to have a first border protection to test imported agriculture products are not yet been established until now. This way, the possible entry of the African swine fever or ASF virus can be prevented.
Kaya bakit natin i-boycott itong food summit niya? Dahil nakikita natin walang direksyon para sa ating local producers.
Hog raisers complained the unpaid indemnification of hogs affected with ASF. The group warns that they are planning to stage another food holiday.
Pinakikita natin, nakauna-una ang pagkakataon na tayo ay sawan-sawa na at parang malapit nang dumating sa tingin ko yung food holiday.
Meanwhile, Agriculture Secretary William Dar encourages the agri-groups to participate in the food summit to hear their side.
There is now consciousness on the part of every Filipino na ang sektor ng agrikultura ay ganoon kahalaga during this time of health pandemic.
The Food Security Summit aims to construct policies that will help the country attain food security. Ray Pelayo, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
Meanwhile, the Philippines now has 2 cases of a B1617 coronavirus disease variant first detected in India. This comes after the World Health Organization classified the B1617 variant as a variant of concern at the global level. Aiko Miguel explains why.
2 overseas Filipino workers from the Middle East that arrived in the country last April tested positive of the B.1.617 COVID-19 variant that was first detected in India. One patient is a 37-year-old male who arrived from Oman on April 10 and is currently in Soksargen, while the other is a 58-year-old male who came from the United Arab Emirates on April 19 is now in Bicol. The DOH explains their samples were sequenced as part of the biosurveillance efforts in the Philippines.
For these 46 samples that were sequenced, there were 2 incoming returning overseas Filipinos that were included, or they did not come from India nor pass through India.
According to DOH Epidemiology Bureau Director Althea de Guzman, the patients have already been tagged as recovered and released from quarantine after they have tested negative for the virus.
More of verifying, validating if the other passengers, for example, yung katabi or kalapit ng ating case sa eroplano, ay i-verify natin kung naiwan nga po silang asymptomatic or ano po yung laboratory status at kung sila po ay nakakompleto nga ng 14-day quarantine.
The World Health Organization or WHO on Monday classified the B.1.617 variant as a variant of concern at the global level. This is the 4th coronavirus variant to be classified as such, joining the B.1.1.7, B.1.351, and P.1 variants. The WHO defines a variant of concern as more contagious than the original form, hard to control, or they lead to more severe illness. The B.1.617 variant contains mutations linked to increased transmissibility and immune escape. The Philippines has implemented a 15-day travel restriction until May 14 on inbound passengers from India, Nepal, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and Sri Lanka. The DOH called on local authorities to implement stricter border control to prevent a local transmission of the said variant. Aiko Miguel, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
2 overseas Filipino workers from the Middle East that arrived in the country last April tested positive for the B.1.617 COVID-19 variant that was first detected in India. One patient is a 30-year-old male who arrived from Oman on April 10 and is currently in Soksargen, while the other is a 58-year-old man. Meanwhile, Metro Manila mayors have yet to recommend the quarantine status for the National Capital Region starting May 15. Metropolitan Manila Development Authority Chairman Benhur Abalos said easing the quarantine restrictions in the NCR should be done gradually. Asher Kadapan Jr. details why.
Immediately shifting to general community quarantine may deter the lowering of COVID-19 cases in the country, as it allows reopening of more industries and other citizens outside residents. Metropolitan Manila Development Authority Chairman Benjamin Benhar Abalos Jr. points this out as he favors modifying the protocols in every quarantine level that will provide gradual ease in the restrictions.
Mahirap talagang sabihin GCQ or ECQ lang, no? Pwede mong timplahin, ika nga. As long as you get yung desired result or whatever is appropriate at this time, the action. Yun ang importante.
The MMDA chairman is also concerned about the continuous border control for individuals entering and leaving the National Capital Region or NCR Plus bubble. With this, Abalos prefers to slowly open the economy while maintaining stringent measures against the pandemic.
We cannot discount the fact that yung unemployment natin, tsaka yung mga nagugutom. So siguro you open up slowly the economy. Hindi pwedeng biglaan ito. But at the end of the day, dapat meron ka pa rin tinatawag ditong very strict implementation of the minimum health protocols.
The Metro Manila mayors are scheduled to meet with the economic team and health experts tomorrow to decide what quarantine classification they will recommend for the region starting May 15. The Interagency Task Force, on the other hand, is expected to discuss their recommendations to President Rodrigo Duterte and announce the quarantine status that will be implemented in the country in the second half of the month of May.
Naasahan po natin na itatawag na lang po natin kay Presidente ang rekomendasyon at magdedesisyon ng Presidente kung approve siya o hindi. So ang anunsyo po sa bagong quarantine classification most likely sa darating na pong Biyernes.
Asher Kadapan Jr., UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
The Philippines recorded 4,734 new cases of COVID-19 today, pushing the total tally to 1,113,547. In the latest bulletin, the Department of Health or DOH said the country's total number of active cases is at 56,752. Of this number, 93.4% are mild, 22.2% are asymptomatic, 1.8% are severe, and 1.4% are in critical condition. The DOH said the lower case count is due to the low number of samples received by the laboratories. Also, at least 12 laboratories failed to submit their data last Sunday. The number of recoveries rose to 1,038,175 after 7,837 more patients recuperated from the viral respiratory disease. The death toll, meanwhile, climbed to 18,620 with 59 new fatalities. Malacanang is unwavering in its optimism that the economy will fare better in the coming months, even as the country's gross domestic product continues to slump. Marvin Calas reports why.
The Philippine Statistics Authority or PSA reported that the country's gross domestic product or GDP posted a smaller contraction of 4.2% in the first 3 months of 2021. This is the first consecutive quarter that the country's economy skidded low. Nevertheless, the National Economic Development Authority or NEDA says although the GDP remains low, it is better from the recorded 8.3% during the last quarter of 2020. NEDA clarified that indications of gradual economic recovery from the effects of the pandemic are observed due to the reopening of businesses because of the easing of restrictions last year. The government is confident that after resolving the challenges of the COVID-19 surge, the country's economy rises on the next few months.
Once the present spike is over, we can implement quarantine restrictions or relaxations rather in a phased approach to boost our recovery this year. Our economy may slow down in early 2021 given recent developments, but we will not backpedal. The country's strong economic position before the pandemic and improving economic data in recent months point to an economy that is on the mend.
Based on these statistics, the sluggish headway of the economy is reflected by the numbered activities of the construction industry and real estates. On the other hand, the financial and insurance, public administration and defense, and the human health and social activities remains on top. NEDA targets a 6.5 up to 7.5% GDP at the end of the year. The government remains positive that even the economy remains low, the country will soon recover in line with the anticipated mass vaccination that is expected to boost business and the trade sector of the Filipino people.
Nalulungkot po kami na patuloy pa rin negatibo ang ating GDP figures, pero nagagalak at the same time dahil from -8 naging -4 na lang po ang negative growth ng ating bayan. Ibig sabihin, unti-unti na po tayo umaahon. At ating pakiusap sa lahat, ingat buhay para po makapaghanap buhay nang sa susunod na quarter, positibo na po ang ating GDP.
Marvin Calas, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
For those watching us on YouTube, please click the subscribe button you see on your screen and ring the bell for notification. You may also follow us on Facebook.
Several senators have expressed their opinion on President Duterte's pure campaign joke. For one lawmaker, the president's confusing statements pose a huge problem. Arlene Delgado will tell us why.
Following the admission of President Duterte that his campaign vow in 2016 that he will ride a jet ski to Spratlys is only a pure campaign joke, some senators expressed their disappointment. For Senator Panfilo Lacson, important issues like the West Philippine Sea should not be taken lightly. According to the lawmaker, the president's confusing statements could have implications not only for the Filipino people but also for various institutions and international relations.
Yun ang malaking problema natin because tuwing magsasalita ba yung Pangulo, tayo yung mag-a-analyze pa. Totoo ba yan o biro? That's very confusing. Seryoso yung topic. And yung presidency is no joking matter. I think the presidency is serious business. No, pag hinaluan mo ng joke and hindi na alam din ng tao kung biro o totoo o seryoso, ano yan may mga implication yan.
He adds it also diminishes the efforts and strong statements of Foreign Affairs Secretary Teodoro Locsin Jr. and Defense Secretary Delfin Lorenzana in asserting the country's rights in the West Philippine Sea. Meanwhile, for Senator Risa Hontiveros,
matagal nang walang natatawa sa mga joke ni President Duterte. Kung joke lang pala yung mga plataforma niya nung nanliligaw siya sa mga botante, ibig sabihin, joke din ba ang turing niya sa pagiging presidente?
Senator Laila de Lima, a staunch critic of the president, called it classic Duterte. For the lady senator, it only affirmed that President Duterte has no plans to invoke the country's sovereign rights over the West Philippine Sea. But Senate President Vicente Soto III says he knew it was a joke, saying that he knew that it is impossible being a jet skier himself. For his part, Senator Kiko Pangilinan wants the palace to focus on addressing the COVID-19 pandemic.
Ang problema natin, COVID at walang trabaho at walang hanap buhay. At sana yan ang tutukan natin na usapin. At hindi itong kung mga biro-biro na wala namang kinalaman sa gutom ng ating mga kababayan.
Despite this, the lawmakers are leaving it up to the voters on knowing who to vote in the upcoming elections.
This should be a lesson for all of us. When we choose our leaders, hindi yung titingnan lang natin yung magaling mag-joke, magaling magsayaw, magaling mag-TikTok, magaling mag-budot, magaling kumanta. It's about time na we look at issues.
Arlene Delgado, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
Malacanang believes the Duterte administration's critics are zeroing in on the West Philippine Sea issue as the 2022 election in the country nears. Rosalie Cos will tell us why.
Malacanang asserted that the public has nothing to gain with a word war and even a debate between the administration and the opposition on the issue of the West Philippine Sea. However, the palace has no choice but to respond to the criticisms and allegations hurled against the government amid the pandemic. According to Presidential Spokesperson Harry Roque, the enemies of the government are using these issues as the national election nears.
lahat naman po ng pagpupula sa West Philippine Sea, dahil wala na sila ibang mapula kay Presidente, naghahanap ng issue para sa eleksyon. Huwag naman po sa panahon ng pandemya. Santabi muna po yan.
The palace official stands firm that the Philippines and China have developed better ties under the Duterte administration and no new reclamations or new territories were occupied by China because of the agreement forged between the two countries. This is in direct contrast with what happened during the previous administration, particularly following the Scarborough Shoal standoff in 2012 when China started its massive reclamations over the disputed territories. The administration questions the allegations that it is deflecting the blame on the West Philippine Sea issues.
We are now enjoying the renaissance as far as Philippine-Chinese relations is concerned. Hindi po nagkakaroon ng banta sa ating territorial integrity. What is there to deflect? Sumasagot lang po kami sa mga walang basehan ng mga paratang ng mga kritiko ng Presidente.
The official adds the West Philippine Sea World War will end once the opposition stops its criticisms and allegations against the administration. Rosa Licoz, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
A political science expert presumes that President Rodrigo Duterte's campaign joke pronouncement would not affect his popularity among the Filipinos. Nel Maribuhok explains why live. Yes, Nel, go ahead.
Yes, Angelo, the trust and confidence of Filipinos to President Rodrigo Duterte remains strong despite his policy in the West Philippine Sea. According to Ador Torneo, a political science professor at the De La Salle University, based on their study, no criticisms could break the trust of the president's supporters.
So ayon sa pag-aaral namin, ang mga kababayan natin na matindi ang paniniwala, matindi ang kanilang tinatawag na partisanship o pagsuporta sa presidente, ay hindi natitinag kahit pa lumabas na magsabi siya ng mga bagay na sa huli mapatutunayan na hindi totoo, no? Or pwede niya sabihin na joke o lumabas na hindi siya nagsabi ng totoo.
Last night, President Duterte admitted that his 2016 pledge to ride the jet ski to the Spratly Islands and plant a Philippine flag there was a pure campaign joke. In the first place, the president said he does not have a working jet ski and the nearest Philippine-held island is too far away with nowhere to refuel on the way.
Panahon sa kampanya yan. At saka yung biro na yun, yung we call it bravado. Yung bravado ko, that's a pure campaign joke. At kung naniniwala kayo sa kabila, pati na siguro si Carpio, pati I would say that you are really stupid.
Despite this, Torneo warns that the administration had to be extra careful in divulging its policy in the West Philippine Sea.
So kapag ang Pangulo ay nagsasabi ng mga bagay na ganito, it potentially undermines, nakokompromiso yung ating posisyon doon sa international audience. At napakalaking bagay nito. Bakit? Sapagkat ang gobyerno ng China sa mga susunod na panahon ay maaari nilang ikot mismo mula sa bibig ng presidente ng Pilipinas na ganito ang sinabi at pwede nilang palabasin sa kanilang argumento na ito ang posisyon ng gobyerno ng Pilipinas.
He said it is better that the president's position in the West Philippine Sea remains to be confidential to his cabinet members. Diego?
Thank you, Nel Mariboho, reporting live.
Two passengers of the Metrorail Transit are facing charges for going down the train rails at an MRT station to take a selfie. The MRT3 management, meanwhile, sees lapses in the station's security. Ashok Kumar Jr. tells us why.
Based on CCTV footages of a passenger going down the train tracks of the Metro Rail Transit or MRT Line 3, it took at least 30 seconds for the person to successfully take photos of himself while sitting on the track before he went back to the platform. The passengers were named as Gerald Oliva, 22 years old, and Ray Liasos, 28 years old. It happened in the northbound lane of Quezon Avenue Station on Sunday, May 9 at past 7 in the evening. MRT3 Officer in Charge, General Manager and Transportation Assistant Secretary Amard Ejes says it took time for the security personnel to learn about the incident and accosted two passengers.
There is, I think, also a little lapse on the security of the yung mga private security agency natin na nakabantay doon, no? Kasi if we can see, nung nakita ko yung CCTV, nung bumaba sila, natapos pa nila yung photo session nila bago sila nahuli. I have to check also their security protocol, bakit nagkaganon.
ASEC Eje explains that it is extremely prohibited for a passenger to go down the train tracks as it poses danger not only to the person involved but also to the train passengers.
Just imagine kung puno yan and then tumatakbo ang tren natin ngayon ng 60 kilometers per hour. Tapos biglang merong tao doon sa riles, hindi ba biglang mag-emergency brake ang ating mga tren? Siguradong may masasaktan doon sa 300 mahigit na pasahero pag biglang na
The two individuals are facing charges for violating Revised Penal Code of the Philippines Article 155 or alarms and scandals. The MRT3 management reminded the public that only authorized individuals are allowed to go down the train tracks. It also urged patrons to immediately report to authorities fellow passengers who are violating the MRT3 rules. Ashok Kumar Jr., UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
The new Philippine National Police Chief, Police General Guillermo Eleazar, defends their plans to visit community pantries across the country. According to Eleazar, the actions of policemen should not be viewed as a form of harassment. Leia Ilagan explains why.
There is nothing wrong if a policeman visits a community pantry and asks some information about it. PNP Chief Police General Guillermo Eleazar said, "It is their duty to conduct patrols and protect the community against any harm. The problem," Eleazar said, is the bad interpretation given by some critics.
Everybody should understand na ang trabaho ng pulis ay siyempre umikot, magtanong, kasama yun di ba? Kaya lang siyempre na misinterpret na ng haharas at yun ang nakakalungkot. Ang problema natin, if they will interpret everything na ganon, na harassment, ay talagang talo tayo.
Despite of the red tagging issue on some community pantries, Eleazar orders police on the ground to still visit community pantry but avoid asking many questions.
Just the same, pinagbili natin ating mga pulis na puntahan ng maayos, kausapin at i-assist na lang sila.
Eleazar further pointed out that the role of the police in pantries is to ensure that the minimum health standards were being observed in the community pantries. Last month, the PNP was accused of profiling some organizers of the community pantry. However, former PNP Chief Debold Sinas denied that there was a directive in his office. Leia Ilagan, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
Meanwhile, organizers of community pantries declined the assistance from the members of the National Police. JP Nunez will tell us why.
Kilusang Mayo 1 or KMU Secretary General Jerome Adonis has rejected the plan of the Philippine National Police to visit some community pantries. The KMU owns the Obrero Community Pantry in Quezon City. According to Adonis, the work to organize and enforce the health protocols can be done by the local government units.
Hindi kami agree doon. Kasi unang-una, napakadungis na ng imahe ng Philippine National Police sa ating mga kababayan, lalong-lalo na dito sa pantry dahil nabuko na yung kanilang maitim na balaki ng mga nakaraan na i-profile yung mga kababayan natin. Kasi kaya naman siyang i-handle ng barangay, hindi kailangan ang pulis.
However, patrons of the pantries oppose the organizers' sentiments. According to them, they feel more secure when police officers are around.
Mas maganda nga po yung may police kasi naaayos po yung mga pila kasi po ang karamihan dito kasi mga pasawa yung mga iba.
Okay lang. Kasi nababantayan ng maayos yung mga pila tapos nakikita kung talagang sumusunod sa protocol ng gobyerno para maiwasan din na magkahawa-hawa sa virus.
Meanwhile, Manila Police District clarifies that there will be no formal deployment of their personnel to a specific community pantry. Policemen will just do their regular patrol operations to ensure people are following minimum health standards. But if a community pantry organizer asks for help, they will be deploying their personnel upon request. JP Nunez, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
The Food and Drug Administration says there is no conflict of interest in the Department of Health's plan to apply for an emergency use authorization or EUA for the COVID-19 vaccine made by China's Sinopharm. According to the FDA, it seems that Sinopharm is no longer interested in applying for an EUA in the Philippines. Aiko Miguel explains why.
It will not take 21 days for the approval of Sinopharm's emergency use authorization once the Department of Health submits it. Food and Drug Administration explains this is because Sinopharm is already included in the emergency use listing of the World Health Organization.
And ang maganda sa WHO kasi, very transparent ang documents niyan. Pag ganyan, available din siya sa FDA. Lahat ng review nila, maaari naming ma-access. Kaya hindi tayo masyadong mahihirapan na yung paghingi ng information. So pag ganyan nga na merong WHO na EUL, mas mapapabilis yan. Nakakaya natin yan usually less than 21 days.
The FDA stands firm it is not unlawful that a government agency or a company that has license to operate as a drug importer to submit an EUA for a drug or vaccine.
Posible rin naman na ang gobyerno ay gusto bumili ng bakuna pero walang local manufacturer or walang local representative dito. So in those cases, the government itself can get an EUA. Hindi naman conflict yun kasi ang mga EUA naman ay hindi naman talaga sila product registration, hindi naman sila marketing authorization. Talagang for emergency use lang mga bakuna.
One of the requirements for a vaccine manufacturer to apply for an EUA is to have a license to operate as a drug importer in the Philippines, but Sinopharm has no license on it. FDA adds it seems like Sinopharm has no plans to submit an EUA in the country.
So mukhang hindi naman talaga sila planong mag-set up ng opisina dito. Ang DOH kasi meron siyang license to operate as a drug importer. Tapos yung mga private companies, yung sa Astra, sa Pfizer, o kaya mga nag-apply for Sputnik, mga licensed importers ng drugs dito sa atin. So I think yung Sinopharm, wala naman silang plano na mag-set up ng sarili nilang opisina dito. And will probably just be working with the department.
DG Domingo also said the 3 local distributors who sent a letter of intent to apply for an EUA in behalf of Sinopharm has not yet submitted any requirements as of the current time. Aiko Miguel, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
Former Senator Bongbong Marcos has filed a motion challenging the Presidential Electoral Tribunal, ruling that junks his electoral protest against Vice President Leni Robredo. Dante Amento tells us why live. Dante, go ahead.
Diego, former Senator Ferdinand Marcos Jr. stresses the Supreme Court sitting as the Presidential Electoral Tribunal made a mistake when it junked his third cause of action, which seeks annulment of elections in the provinces of Maguindanao, Lanao do Sur, and Basilan. Marcos believes it is separate and independent from the other cause of actions he raised on his electoral protest. He asks the tribunal to set aside its decision last February 16, 2021 that dismissed his complaint, conduct another preliminary conference for the third cause of action, and proceed with presentation of evidence. The former legislator adds if the High Court will allow his protest to proceed, it will remove doubt who really won in the elections. On June 29, 2016, Marcos filed an election protest for the vice presidential race after he lost to VP Robredo. But February of this year, the PET unanimously dismissed Marcos's poll protest for allegedly baseless, laden with generic and repetitious allegations and lack of criminal information. And the tribunal has also clarified it dismissed Marcos's third cause of action. Diego, Attorney Romulo Macalintal, Robredo's legal counsel, on the other hand, says Marcos is the luckiest man if he could reverse the court's ruling. For now, the Presidential Electoral Tribunal has yet to release a statement on the issue. Diego?
Thank you, Dante Amento, reporting live. President Rodrigo Duterte visited the 6th Infantry Division in Maguindanao today. He appealed to the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao, or BARMM, to help the national government in resolving the continuing armed conflict in the region caused by various terrorist and rebel groups. The president also inspected assorted firearms and ammunition recovered by authorities from January to May of this year. He also met with the area commanders of the Armed Forces of the Philippines and the Philippine National Police. Last Saturday, around 20 BIFF members occupied the Datu Paglas public market, but state security forces drove them away before the BIFF could attack civilian residents. The chief executive warned that if violence will persist, he has no choice but to use force.
Nagmamakaawa ako sa inyo, tulungan ninyo ako. Because otherwise, he said, if I give the order for an all-out offensive, it will be bloody and it will be sad.
Amidst the coronavirus crisis in India, dozens of bodies of suspected COVID-19 victims were washed ashore the Ganges River in northern India as health facilities get overwhelmed. Mari Defin will give us the details live. Yes, Marvi.
Arlene, as the second wave of COVID-19 pandemic continues to hit India, the dead bodies of at least 40 suspected COVID victims have been washed up on the shore of Ganges River between the country's two poorest states of Bihar and Uttar Pradesh. As per the local reports, the bodies appeared to be bloated, partially burned, and could have been floating in the river for several days before discovery. According to India local official Ashok Kumar, he has directed this concern to the responsible officials to dispose the bodies properly. It is speculated by some local residents that this is due to the surge in the daily infections and death toll in the country, overwhelming the health facilities and cremation sites. Additionally, according to some local reports, there is a shortage of wood for cremation. According to local resident Chandra Mohan, there is a massive increase in the hospital and funeral costs, leaving poor families no choice but to dump the bodies of their loved ones in the sacred river. Meanwhile, the World Health Organization, or WHO, has classified the India COVID variant B.1.617 as a global concern, as India records the highest ever surge of almost 400,000 daily new cases and 4,000 daily new deaths. Back to you, Harleen.
Thank you, Marvi Delphin, reporting live from Australia. No deaths from the coronavirus have been recorded in England in the latest 24-hour period. Charisse Nomboan will tell us why live. Yes, Charisse.
Harleen, for the first time since July 30, 2020, England reported zero COVID-19 deaths on Monday for those within 28 days of COVID-19 positive tests. No COVID-19 death was also reported yesterday in Scotland and Northern Ireland. According to University of Edinburgh epidemiology professor Roland Cow, the decline in the number of COVID-19 deaths showed the impact of vaccination. Dr. Michael Head, a senior research fellow in global health at the University of Southampton, added that the recent lockdown also helped reduce transmission and number of COVID-19 deaths, and the decline compared to 3 months ago is an excellent progress. With these, Prime Minister Boris Johnson said that England is on track to end all legal restrictions on the 21st of June. Arlene?
Thank you, Charis Dongboan, reporting live from Thailand.
Meanwhile, a tourist holds on for dear life at 330 feet in the air after a bridge shatters in China, raising concerns of the public about the safety of the number of increasing glass bridges across the country. Nina Bascon reports.
A tourist was left clinging for his life at 330 feet in the air after 90 miles per hour gale force winds shattered the glass-bottom bridge in China located at a resort in Pian Mountain. The horrifying image allegedly showed how a man was left to cling on after some of the glass panels blew away. With the rescue efforts of firefighters, forestry, police, and tourism workers, he was able to crawl to safety. Following the ordeal, the man was admitted to a hospital receiving psychological counseling. There were no casualties reported, however, the incident garnered plenty of attention. It has accumulated 4 million views on Weibo, the country's social media platform where the photo was originally shared. Since then, the photo has also circulated on Twitter with people expressing their horror. The increasing popularity of glass-bottom bridges has seen at least 60 built across China in the last 5 years. Although there have been guidelines set by some local governments to limit potential hazards, the concerns of the public have not been eased. Recently, the resort, Pian Mountain, has now been closed and an investigation into the incident by the Longjing government will be carried out. In addition, the city government will conduct a comprehensive safety inspection of all tourist attractions, making sure the public is safe. Nina Bascon, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
Mark Zuckerberg is under fire for releasing an Instagram version aimed at kids under 13, which is predicted by many to create a myriad of problems for the youth. Jose Liquido will tell us the details live. Yes, Jose Lito, good evening. Go ahead.
William, Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook plan to release an Instagram version aimed at kids younger than 13, which is said to cater for their social media interests and needs. A group of 44 general attorneys, however, were quick to take actions and have since written a letter to Zuckerberg to boycott the move. The letter argues that these kids don't even have the full capacity nor maturity of navigating their own social media accounts, and on top of that, the challenges that pop up online. It also asks to justify the mental health, privacy concerns, and it will have for the youth once they start using it. The Attorney Generals have cited research which claim that social media negatively impact children by increasing the risk of addictions, lower self-esteem, and extremely suicidal ideations. On the other hand, a spokesperson for Facebook has given a statement to CNN Business claiming that the app rollout is to support secure online activities for kids, emphasizing that kids nowadays are already on the internet anyway. It is therefore to help parents instead in exercising control over these activities by giving them the power to see what their kids are doing. The company has promoted that the development of the software abides by children's safety policies and are actually looking forward to working with officials, including the general attorneys. Additionally, Zuckerberg has been accused of using the platform as a marketing strategy to include young kids. But so far, the Facebook founder stated that the online platform is still in its exploratory stages and is still hopeful to see an online service safe for children. William?
Yes, thank you, Joselito Liquido, reporting live.
And those are the reasons behind the news, May 11, 2021. I am Harleen Delgado.
Reasons we deliver to you as they unfold. I'm Angelo Castro III.
And because we need to know, we will always ask why. I am William Theo. We serve the people. We give glory to God.